Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already, and drop a like on this video. It is much appreciated. So today's video is obviously not a post-game recap. I am talking about the injury that James Harden got. Also, real quick, I do just want to acknowledge that injuries this year in general feel like they've been really bad. Like, I don't know if the percentage of injuries has gone up necessarily, but a lot of the bigger names are players that are getting hurt and missing big time. Obviously, LeBron and AD, Jamal Murray out for the season. TJ Warren has not been. I guess that injury happened before the season. I don't remember, but he hasn't played basically the entire year. There's James Harden getting this injury. Kawhi has an injury. Joel Embiid missed a bunch of time with an injury. There's just a lot of players missing time. Kevin Durant has barely played. Kyrie hasn't played a lot, but like he kind of always doesn't play a lot, so that's not as big of a development. But just in general, this year has been hindered by injuries, and now we have James Harden, one of the most durable players in the league, getting an injury. He has some sort of hamstring thing going on. There was a report from Woj that there was a setback that happened on some on-court stuff that resulted in it getting pushed back and him basically having an indefinite time frame to come back. Now, that does not mean that he's not going to be there for the playoffs. I think saying like he is out indefinitely can be scarier than the actual thing is. Like, indefinitely could mean 2 weeks. It just really just means they don't know. But just taking the assumption that he's not going to play much of what's left of the season, if any of it, I did see a valid concern come up, which is that we've only actually seen Harden, Kyrie, and Durant play 7 games together. Now, my issue or my concern about the three of them chemistry-wise working out isn't really a thing anymore. Like, with James Harden making the adjustments that he did when going to Brooklyn, even without those three playing together all that much, it made me like where the original argument of like, oh, there's only one ball, 3 guys that want to shoot it. I'm not too concerned about that anymore. I think Kyrie has no issue shooting the ball less. Thinks James Harden same way. Kevin Durant kind of always was that way to some extent, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. But there still is going to be chemistry just simply from not playing together more than 7 games throughout an entire season and then jumping into a playoff scenario that I think can be concerning, because it was hoped that these three would get a lot of run in the last 20 or so games of the season because Kevin Durant had just come back from injury, but now James Harden, of all people, is the one that gets hurt. So the actual playing of these three together, it's going to happen 7 games in the regular season, or maybe like 10 or so, depending on when James comes back. And then they're jumping right into the playoffs. And while they looked perfectly fine in the 3 games they played together, make no mistake, there wasn't too many chemistry things, not many things, just like clearly there's some like adjustments that need to be made. There's small things here and there, but nothing major. That's still a little bit concerning that, versus a team that has built up chemistry for an entire season, that's going to be a difference maker. I think chemistry is a huge part of basketball that is often ignored. Like, just having these players play together over a long period of time versus throwing a team together last second, like, you can't expect that not to be a problem, and I'm fully expecting it to be a problem. There's also like a slim possibility they drop a few spots in the standings. I'm actually going to pull it up because I think the difference between them and the Celtics isn't that big ever since the Celtics have gone on the run they had this season. Actually, not the Celtics. Well, I guess, yeah, it's basically the same rough win percentage. They have a 7-game lead on the Hawks. They should probably be fine. They might drop to the 3 seed, but that's not horrible. And then their 3 seed matchup would be the Boston Celtics first round. Hopefully it doesn't become the Heat, because that'd be a worse first round matchup. But yeah, I'm just a little concerned that they're going to have a fit struggle, just because, hey, regardless of how talented a team is, not playing together and then being thrown into a playoff situation immediately is going to be awkward. I think the overall argument which is an argument I believed in before the trade happened, of like, oh, these three are going to get in each other's way. Initially, that was like an ego argument. Like, hey, these guys are going to step on each other's toes because all of them want to shoot the ball 20 times a game. That's not really the problem. Like I said earlier, Kyrie would not. None of these guys would have an issue shooting less, I don't think, and especially James Harden clearly became much less of a shoot first guy in Brooklyn. I think he's still leading the league in assists. He's down to like 25 points per game, which is crazy to say the phrase he's down to 25 points per game, but for James Harden, 25 points is like absolutely nothing. You look at a box score, James Harden scored 25. Oh, that must have been a down game for him because he just scores like that. And that's not, it's not going to be an ego thing. It's not going to be, hey, I want to shoot the ball more, and that's going to interrupt the flow of the offense, and then teams are going to take advantage of us fighting with each other over the ball. It's not going to be that as much as it is just simply not playing together much is going to be an issue. The main argument when people said that before the Harden trade went down was an ego, not wanting to share the ball thing. Now it's just simply the fact that they have played together 7 actual games, and that is rather concerning. There's going to be, especially because James Harden had taken such a prominent role within the Nets offense. Kyrie was really, anytime Kyrie plays, he shoots the ball a lot for the Nets. I think he's up to nearly 30 points per game right now. Very clearly, those roles have been established without Kevin Durant there. They would play together, but they'd also play games separate from each other. And getting Kevin Durant in the mix recently, I think he just came back from an injury, and he played with, I don't remember if it was Kyrie or James Harden he played a game with, but he played very short minutes and played them well. But then they haven't played the 3 of them even after he had come back from injury, because I think James Harden quad or Kyrie always finds a way to miss a game. So, and I should clarify, with injury, I'm not talking about the personal shit that he's had to deal with off of the court. That's perfectly fine, and I don't understand the criticism of that. It's perfectly valid to me. I really don't care that much. Where am I going with this? I was making an argument. I got sidetracked by Kyrie. But like the hope was that the last 20 or so games, they'd be able to get their reps in and really figure out that chemistry, at least to, the degree that you want to where there is no potential major issue. And now they don't really have that opportunity because Harden is going to be out for probably the remainder of the regular season or something in that ballpark. Now, does that take away my belief in them being the best team in the NBA and the team that will win the championship? No. It doesn't. I still am pretty confident that this team can outgun anybody, even if they have some issues. I think by the time they match up against teams that can really beat them, like the Bucks, I think, or the Sixers, or the Lakers, or the Clippers, by the time they get to those matchups, which are those are really the only teams. A healthy Nuggets, I would have said, could have beat the Nets, but now probably not healthy. No. But I don't think that they're going to. They might have chemistry issues early on in their first and second round matchups, depending on stuff like that. But by the time they're in the Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals, I think those things would probably be hammered out. So I'm still going to pick the Nets to win a championship. This does not negate from that, but it does take away my confidence to an extent. My clear, no one's really going to fuck with the Nets unless the Nets do something to fuck with themselves. I'm not really too concerned about them. There is a little bit of concern right now, and that's just because this injury is going to derail their potential to get things locked in and get this team comfortable playing together fully and knowing ways to not step on each other's toes and all that stuff. And they're not going to get that opportunity now, and that makes me concerned that we'll see bits and pieces of that could potentially become something big, but I'm expecting it not to. At the end of the day, I think the Nets are still the 2021 NBA champions, or will be, that is. It's just a matter of if this is going to be a big thing or not. I just figured it was worth talking about because it could potentially be a thing. But at the end of the day, I still think they're going to win, but I'm a little bit worried about it, and I figured it was worth talking about. Also, injuries again this year just fucking suck. And there's a conversation to be had around Adam Silver and fitting 72 games into a short amount of time, and how many back-to-backs teams are having. Like, I think I saw some stretch, partially because also COVID has had games be delayed. So like there's teams that are playing like 5 games in 7 days, which is absolutely ludicrous. I think the Heat had a stretch like that, or are about to have a stretch like that, and like that's a big concern. And I think that's a big reason why injuries are happening this year. I did hear that there's some numbers that are like, actually percentage of players getting injured and the severity of injuries isn't that much different than other seasons, but it just feels like the bigger names are the ones taking the brunt of the injuries, and that is definitely not good. So Yeah. Also, I said before, the Lakers are probably going to have to deal with some of these same chemistry issues. So them being the biggest threat to the Nets, I think, kind of negates that a little bit. But at this point, I'm just rambling. So yeah, that was it. Goodbye.